were talking a bit about this like before we started the podcast, but I've had low folate for years.
Yeah.
I've never had symptoms like that I've noticed of low folate, but whenever I've been pregnant, I've been like, I'm going to take folate. I usually do it by injection just in case, because I'm only eating meat. This diet's very new. I was like, I don't want to be the person that ends up folate deficient during pregnancy severely, that impacts the baby or something stupid like that. Why do you think that could potentially be caused by just not eating folate rich sources? Or for me, I know this is a guess, do you think that could be an absorption issue?
Well, so like one example of this would be looking at the methylfolate cycle. Okay.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us have heard of this MTHFR gene variant where you can have one of or two of the variations that makes it harder for your body to convert folate into what your body can use, which is called methylfolate. And there are several things, if you look at this cycle, to where, like, for your body, if you're going to eat, let's say, take a folic acid supplement, okay? Your body needs vitamin B2, and then it needs B6, and then it needs B12 in order to convert it into methylfolate. So think about when you take folic acid, it's like you're getting a car without wheels on it. You can't drive it, you can't use it. What your body tends to do, if it's really healthy and functioning well, is it'll go and put wheels on the car. So now your body, it can drive things places, it can operate, it can function properly. But if you're deficient, and again, B2, B6 or B12, your body isn't going to convert things properly. And then there's all kinds of other things if you're deficient in, like zinc and magnesium and choline, that'll affect the conversion as well. So what a lot of people don't realize, now some people could take folic acid, now this is rare and it fixes the problem. Some people can take methylfolate and that fixes the problem. But for some people, even within that methylfolate cycle, if you're not absorbing it, it's just, you're gonna have a side effect. Like I know you were sharing, you're wired.
So I haven't, I should add that. So I haven't been supplementing because every time I take methylfolate. Now I don't have MTHFR. I've checked.
Yeah.
So I have no problem converting it. But I can't take it without like really being almost hypomanic. It's crazy. And so I've just been like, wow, folate doesn't agree with me.
Yeah. I think it's likely an absorption issue. And it's hard to know where that's coming from. Now, in your case, in a lot of cases, sometimes, let me say this about the MTHFR people out there. I think most of them think if I just take a methylfolate supplement, that's like going to get my body to where it needs to be. I think even if you have the MTHFR variant, if your body's really healthy, your body can still create methylfolate. It's not that it can't, it's just not efficient as others.
Yeah.
It really comes down to your gut microbiome for most people. If your gut microbiome is really healthy, people are going to convert things very well. But if you're missing certain bacteria and enzymes within your microbiome, your absorption is just very low and you'll get the sort of symptoms you're talking about. So I really think for you, it's probably more of a microbiome issue and maybe a deficiency of a certain type of bacteria.
Interesting. Okay.
Or it could be overgrowth that's keeping a certain type of bacteria from creating an enzyme or helping your body in the conversion process.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Well, it's not cool. I mean, it's not cool for you, but yeah.
So you've done a lot of work on gut health, which is fascinating because I do think, we talked about this on the podcast I did with you, but I do think most of these problems come from the gut. There's just like things wrong with the gut.
There's a lot.
So where should people start, I guess, to start to look into gut health? Is like when you take a patient, is that where you start? Or do you run a whole slew of tests and then look at that, try and diagnose things from there? Take me through your process.
Yeah. So there's a few things I do, and it depends on how deep I'm going with somebody. So, if I'm actually seeing a patient, I look at their symptoms and that's the first thing I look at. Okay, what all are you dealing with? And then one of the other things I do, the first things I do is I have them either if it's in person, which is rare, I'll have them show me a picture of their tongue, or if one of my practitioners will get a picture of their tongue. And I also do a fair amount of Chinese medicine, and the amount I can tell from looking at somebody's tongue about their digestive system is a lot. So for instance, if somebody has ridges on the side of their tongue, that's in Chinese medicine, that's actually called a spleen qi deficiency, but really that means your digestive system is weak. Okay. So there's not enough cellular energy, mitochondrial health, like your digestion is weak. So there are specific herbs and foods and supplements that actually build up and strengthen the gut. So in that case, astragalus is very good for building and strengthening up the gut. I would put that person on a diet that's really a lot of like sweet potatoes and pumpkin and a lot of soups, beef, lamb, those sort of like things that you'd eat in the fall and Thanksgiving, like cinnamon and ginger. So that's going to really help that weak digestive system. Now, other people might have more of microbial overgrowth. Now, the one you're going to see most on the tongue is yeast. Okay, that's what you're going to see most commonly. And sometimes the coating is just thick on top. Sometimes it's actually embedded. That's where I know it's been there a long time.
Ew.
And there's a difference between if it's on the back or the full. If it's in the middle of the tongue, that means it's more in this. It's even in the spleen and the upper digestive system. If the coating is only on the back of the tongue, that means more of the microbial dysbiosis is going on in the colon. And so anyway, so I'll look at the tongue and there's a lot I can tell from that. And if that's the case, we want to do some natural antimicrobials. In certain cases, people can go and take, if it's very specific and we run blood work or do a stool analysis, maybe they do get on a conventional antibiotic, but 99% of the time, or in most cases outside of the rare ones, we can do ozone therapy. We can do some natural antibiotics like oregano. We can do silver IVs, a number of those things that work. Caprylic acid, berberine. So there's a lot of those things. And then I tend to try and not rack up a big blood work bill for people early on. I really try and figure out based on their symptoms, tongue diagnosis, and some other things, what's going on. And if we can fix it that way, let's do it that way. If not, then let's do some blood work or I tend to do a stool analysis and a mycotoxin test, also looking for parasites. Mm-hmm. And then when we do that, we also know a little bit more about, what's going on and how to treat that. Because an anti-parasite versus an antifungal versus an antibacterial versus an antiviral, they're different herbs and supplements somebody should be taking. So for parasites, it's things like black walnut and wormwood and garlic and those sort of things, which are going to be different than if you've got, it just depends on what you're dealing with. But that's, so I tend to look at, tongue diagnosis, the symptoms, and a combination of different labs. Okay,
interesting. So when I was a kid, I used to get I'd get strep and a pneumonia all the time, like every year.
Yeah.
And for pneumonia, it was every year I was on immune suppressants. So I'd pick up a cold, it'd turn into a pneumonia. I'd go on antibiotics, then I'd go on antibiotics again, then I would get sicker. Then my mom would bring me to Linda, the Chinese doctor. And I'd be like, my mom is insane. And Linda would look at my tongue and then she would do cupping to loosen like phlegm.
Yeah.
And then she would give me this disgusting drink that we had to brew at home that was full of sticks. And it looked like it was horribly bitter. And then it would get rid of my pneumonia.
Yeah.
But every year we did the same thing. It was like antibiotics, eventually go see Linda out of desperation.
Man, we should have saw Linda first. See Linda first.
I know. We never saw Linda first. I don't know why we didn't see Linda first, but it was wild to me, even as a kid, be like, let me see your tongue. I'd be like, what is happening? Like, what's Linda doing? And it would fix the pneumonia. Yeah. And I ended up in the hospital in grade 6 from this pneumonia that wouldn't go away, probably because of the immune suppressants. But Linda's Chinese medicine, there was something there. I haven't done a lot of delving into that. So is the reason that you look at tongues in your patients, is that from Chinese medicine?
It is. Yeah, it's some of my training there. And again, there's a lot that you can tell looking at the body. Another thing you can do is feel someone's pulse, but somebody has to be trained.
Oh, she'd do that too.
Yeah. So somebody has to be trained in that. And, but yeah, again, there are people that are incredibly both intuitive and have learned to read the body in amazing ways. I mean, there are people that can look into your eye and look at what's going on in the different color of your eye and tell what your health problems are. There are people that can look at your tongue, your pulse. I'll tell you, so we've got a dear friend of ours who's a Chinese medicine doctor. And so Chelsea, I remember before we even knew she was pregnant, he went in to see her and he kept going like this to her. He goes, Chelsea, your pulse feels really good. And she's like, okay, what are you trying to say? And she's like, well, you're pregnant. And Chelsea was like, well, I thought I could be, but I didn't. I mean, and so what you'll feel in a pulse of someone's pregnant is you'll almost feel two beats, like one on top of the other. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
So with Chinese medicine, like if I went to China and saw a doctor, does that mean that they're doing Chinese medicine, or do they mostly do conventional as well?
No, well, they do more what we'd call Chinese medicine today. And generally in the healthiest countries in the world, or at least the healthiest country in the world today, I believe is Japan. And they practice, I think it's called Kempo. And it's a type of what we'd call Chinese medicine today. We call it Chinese medicine. What they do in China today, it's called TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. And they primarily look at something called the 5 elements. And it's a way of grouping conditions together. So they will, like in Western medicine today, doctors look at things, and we have even different doctors based on different organ systems.
Yeah.
In Chinese medicine, rather than 12 or 15 different systems of the different organs, they look at systems of the body in 5 different systems, and they will treat you based on they treat you based off not of a condition, but off of an imbalance. So they'll look at your body and say, okay, your body internally is too hot or too cold, or it's too damp or too dry, or there's too much movement or not enough movement. In pneumonia, it tends to be not enough movement, which is what cupping helps move things. It tends to be too much dampness, which is why all the bitter herbs.
Moldy basement I was living in too.
Exactly. And mold is a type of dampness, as is candida or any type of microbial overgrowth. And it depends on the type of pneumonia. It could be too hot or too cold. But that's the way that they'll look at the body is here's what they believe. Our entire medical system today is based off of some of the findings of Louis Pasteur, who developed pasteurization. And he developed the germ theory, and he said, it's germs that make you sick. Well, there's another physician, his name was Bechamp, who really goes back way before him in ancient Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, that said, no, it's not germs that make you sick, it's your internal environment or your external environment, how that impacts your internal environment that makes you sick. So today, if most doctors, they're doing it all wrong. If you come in with an issue like SIBO or Candida or something like that, they're just going to bomb you with antibiotics. Whereas the ancient medical doctor, they're going to look at your body and say, okay, the environment's off. What's going on here? Okay, let's do things to get rid of the dampness. Well, bitter foods get rid of the dampness. Hence, the most disgusting drink you've ever drank in your life was probably andrographis or some other bitter herb that helps drive all of that mucus and phlegm out of your lung. Because the thing about that's what pneumonia is. There's water a lot of times. There's fluid in your lungs. And so that's what they were doing, is changing your environment, because they believe your body heals itself. So do I.
Yeah.
We just need to change the environment. It's like, hey, you've got a river or a stream that's got all these toxins in it. Well, let's remove the toxins. Well, now the fish can thrive. It's the same kind of idea.
Wow, that's so different than conventional medicine.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But it really worked. And this worked multiple times on me when antibiotics didn't work and I was extremely sick.
Wow.
And immunosuppressed. And I had this bitter, horrible tea, and then it fixed me. I was just like, what? I'd rather take antibiotics than drink that. That was before I knew
yes.
that it was much a better idea to just drink the tea. Wow, that's fascinating.